It was too late.
It's okay. It's lovely.
So I want to talk about the Christian culture and our calling because there's a famous quote from Asia that basically says, knowing who you are and knowing who others is almost the end of the game. And we're interacting with the culture every day, and we are in the culture. It's very important for us to understand who we are, what is the culture, and what's our role there. Next slide. Okay. So, table of contents. I first want to talk about the culture and Christian, what it is, and secondly, how to understand and interact with the culture. And third, what is our calling as a Christian in the culture? And fourth, I want to give you some tangible takeaways so you can take it home. So those are our contents, starting from number 1. Next slide. The Christians and the culture. I want to set the stage. So what is culture? Next slide, please. So there are some big words. One of my favorite definitions is culture is what human beings makes of the world in both sense. Both sense means we make culture. Culture is about things that we make. The Instagram photo that you produce, right? The things that you upload, or any what people make in the business world, Apple, Google, Facebook. They make culture, but also culture makes who we are. Cultural influence. Culture provides meanings of what we do and how we interact with the world day to day. So another definition related is culture is the belief, behavior, value, language, intellectual achievement, artistic expression, and entire way of life, a particular group of people. So we're living in a very specific culture. Next slide, please. Another best way to describe it, I like this analogy a lot. It's the water that we swim in. So two fish, give you a little bit of joke. The two fish were swimming, and they're swimming, and the older fish came in, and hey boy, how's it going? What's the water like today? And what do you think the boy responded with? Boy was basically saying, what the hell is the water? So that means we often don't even recognize that there is a water that we're swimming in, but we are in the water, always interacting and living, breathing. So that's the culture. So as a Christian, how do we interact with the culture? How do we engage with the culture? Next slide, please. So the one in left is as a Christian, and the one in right is the culture. And this is not who we are. This is not the clear division of us and words. We're not out of the culture. We're not only engaging in cultural wars, or we're simply not just disengaged with the culture. We're not indifferent about the culture, right? But what we do and who we are is, next slide, is we are in the culture, we're in the word, but not of the word. What we hope and what we do and what we desire, what we pray, is bring the kingdom down on the right side. The left side is the culture and word we're living in. The right side, that's what we desire, for God's kingdom to come down to earth and everywhere we go in the culture, to be completely in line with God's design, God's shalom, peace. That's what we desire. But we are, so that's who we are. That's just setting the stage of Christian and culture. Let's go a little deeper. So how to understand and interact with the culture. Let me introduce you this framework, the RE framework. Next slide, please. So there's 3 modes that we can understand and we can interact with the culture. Number 1 is called it exploitative. So here, the mode here, another name is take all you can get. So it's to take advantage, it's to win and conquer with the expense of someone else. So I win, you lose is the motto, and motivating force is win and control. And you've seen and you've experienced it in your life, what it's like to be treated and what it's like to have this motive of, I want to win in the expense of someone else. Next slide. The second line is ethical. So here, we're playing by the rule. We're being fair. We want to do good. So do things right. This is the motive. Sounds really good, right? I win, we win. And motivating factor is to be good. Do no harm, play by rules, integrity, excellence, and common good. So a lot of good words. And you might think, oh, this is the state that we want to shoot for. And a lot of times that's what you hear from your friends or from the culture. Hey, let's be ethical. Let's play by the rule. Let's create a win-win. Isn't this the best we can shoot for? But let me tell you, there's another layer, next slide, called redemptive layer. So here, the motivation, notice the difference in motivation. It's not about trying to be good, it's about to love and serve. There's a sacrifice involved. I sacrifice a ribbon. And this is called a creative restoration through sacrifice, which I will unpack more. But this is a concept that oftentimes the world has never heard of. It sounds so absurd. Why would you sacrifice? Isn't being good? Isn't being fair? Isn't creating win-win is good enough? And there are two reasons that we as a Christian know that there should be something beyond the ethical sphere. Number one is, we know so well that by default, there's this driving force of us being selfish. There's this exploitative. If you're not being really trying hard and very cognizant about what's going on, the world and ourselves, and it's a fallen world that we're living. So there's a force that goes to the exploitative way of working and engaging. The second is the world we're living, there are injustice and idolatries. So there are things, the broken things in the world cannot be just fixed by being ethical, cannot be just done by you're playing fair. So you've seen from either social justice movement, other movement, that there are movement to restore things and to help people, and that's going beyond ethical sometimes. And you've seen there are reasons and needs to go beyond ethical, and we call that redemptive sphere. If you go to next slide. So this is one way to I want to illustrate to you guys. So all the way to the left is exploitative, and being in the middle is ethical, and all the way to the right is redemptive. You see, if you're 100% driven by yourself, that's being de-exploitative. 100% driven by Christ, that's de-redemptive. And in the middle, there's a common grace, because we all human beings are the image bearer of God, and God gave us the sense of morality, sense of compass, even if they're not Christian. The Word knows intrinsically that there's something to do good. So the morality, image bearer of God, that's the lens. But we know that when Christ is in the center, then we can go all the way to redemptive. Next slide. So definition, I want to read it slowly, to follow after me. You don't have to talk it out, but you can just follow me. Redemptive is following the pattern of creative restoration through sacrifice in our life and work. Let's chew on those words a little bit. The redemptive is following the pattern of creative restoration through sacrifice in our life and work. And let's unpack it even further. Next slide, please. So there are three modes that I want to tell you. It's about what and how and why. So first, what we do, what we build. And this question will matter a lot to you, even today, but more and more, as you think about what you want to do in your life. It's about there are three lens. So if you are exploitative, then you want to leverage the culture. You want to leverage something. That's what you do. You want to leverage something. Trends in culture for individual or organizational gain. That's what you do. Second, the ethical strategy or ethical what is seek to advance culture by doing no harm and encouraging progress. So if you are building something amazing, an Instagram, Tesla, I mean that's great. I mean you are advancing the culture. That's being ethical. You are doing something with no harm, but encouraging the progress of some other culture. But the redemptive what is even beyond. So it's creative restoration. Let me read this. It is products, services, program, brands, experiences that renew culture by making their part of the world more humanizing, truthful, beautiful, virtuous, lasting, restorative, just, and God glorifying. It is how we use our own power to love our neighbor whom we do not know. So what does it look like? A lot of people, what does it look like? Next slide, please. So this is a swimsuit company made by name Jessica Reyes, and I will read it. The mission and so the motto is in the world of swimwear, small is often beautiful. For her, for Jessica Reyes, bigger is better. The brand's motto is who says it has to be itsy bitsy. Inspired by fashion icon, designer Jessica Reyes hopes to capture the fashion icon's sense of style, grace, class, and fun. She seamlessly sews together contemporary fashion with vintage glamour. So they're focusing on upholding the dignity of all people and only works with partners who share their value, believe in ethical production. The word is defined by exploitative beauty, sense of beauty, and definition of certain like bikini and swimsuit. And there are other people who's building something that can counter and restore. So this is an example that I wanted to show you. Let's go to the second part. Moving from what, now talk about how we work. Again, three lens, you know the drill, right? What is the exploitative how? It's use people. Again, you've experienced it in your life, and you might have done it in your life too. If your motivation is to use someone else, and that's how you operate. Seek to use people as resources to achieve organizational goals or some sort of goals, personal goals. That's exploitative how. The ethical is seek to respect people by developing them and treating them fairly. Respect people. And again, there's the redemptive lens, which is bless people. Bless people is blessed through grace, generosity, virtue, justice, patience, mutuality, inclusion, and opportunity. It is how we use our agency, which is power, to love our neighbor whom we know. So let's see another example. So this is a company called 5 Stars, and the founder are Christian, and they made the value very distinctively Christian, but they made a value that can interact with their employees, but they don't force people to be Christian, right? That's not what they do, but they treat people with the value, and they have this value called the humility and authenticity. So the one of the way example of they practiced it is even in a time that they had to let some people go. The corporate culture is to just give them a sheet of paper and then let them live and play by law so that there's no dramas and there's no consequences. It's very dry and cold. But the way they did, and they were just being genuine and authentic. They told them, and the whole company helped them find a new job and really hug them and greeted them as they leave. So this is an anonymous board that people talk about how is it like to work in this company, and you can just see how do they operate as a company, as an organization. So I wanted to give you this example of how and blessing people, how it can look like in real life examples. Next slide. And let's talk about why we build and why we do certain things. So exploitative is the pursuit of our natural ambition to live for ourselves. If we have a certain ambition to live for ourselves, it can often be exploitative. The second is ethical leadership is to improve ourselves. And redemptive leadership is to die to self. So let me read it. It's to dethrone ourselves from the center of our concerns, dethrone ourselves because we are dying to ourselves. And this way becoming more surrendered, accountable, rested, and generous with resources and power. It is about receiving God's unconditional and sacrificial love for us, so that in response, we can love Him and our neighbor through our life and work. So what it's like to have the motivation and die to self. Let's, can you play the video?
Hi, I'm Mike Arrieta. I remember growing up how ridiculously hard my father worked to provide for our family. He worked 80 hours a week, he came home every night around 10 o'clock, and after nearly 20 plus years of doing this, his income remained the same. It was nearly impossible to provide for a family of 5. However, the most unfortunate part for me was how someone with so much God-given potential had such limited opportunity. I came to realize the constraint came from working for small companies. They lacked the resources to provide an opportunity for him to develop, prosper, and thrive. That is why we started Garden City. We exist to create the best jobs ever, a place where the working class people can thrive, prosper, and flourish, a place where they're cared for, have respect and dignity, an environment focused on excellence and purpose, a place where they truly love their jobs. We believe happy employees results in happy customers, which ultimately results in a great business. This is the Garden City we are creating. So what exactly are we? We're a purpose-driven holding company that seeks to enrich the lives of the working class. Our mission is to create the most caring and innovative service companies in the world. We do this in 3 ways. First, we buy healthy, small to mid-sized, family-owned service companies in the Southeast. Second, once we acquire them, we partner with existing management to grow the business through culture, tech, and sales. And third, we have no intention of ever selling these great businesses. We hold them forever. So we're a holding company, not a private equity fund. Think ServiceMaster meets Berkshire Hathaway, all with the hyper-focus on culture and technology. Very simply, we're creating the type of companies that we ourselves want to work for. The type of companies that last longer than us and our grandchildren are proud of. Imagine a world where working in a janitorial, pest control, or home care company was desirable and admirable, where they were all about innovation and beautiful branding, amazing cultures, and customers are loyal, raving fans. I hope in one form or another, you also join us on this journey as we build the most caring and innovative service companies of tomorrow.
The reason I brought this example is this person has one of the very well-paid job in Silicon Valley and climbing up the corporate ladder of success in Silicon Valley. But he, as he said, he had his father who had the service industry worker who lived by paycheck to paycheck. He had this heart. How can we create an environment for these people, mom and pop business, whether it's HVAC service, whether it's gardener, whether it's someone who does the lawn mowing, for them to have a blessing and place where they can find meanings and purpose and safety in their work. So his whole motivation is to love and serve people, those people that really have a special meaning for him. So these examples, I wanted to give an example and ideas of what it can look like to go redemptive in what and how and why we work and why we live. And these are examples from the business sector because that's most familiar for me, but it doesn't just exist in business sectors. Everywhere that we go, and we can operate in these different frameworks. Go to the next slide. So let's go, now that we've understood generally the setting the stage, what is culture, and different ways of working, there's a exploitative, ethical, redemptive way of engaging and understanding the culture, and there's a what, how, and why we work and how we can operate. Let's go, let's understand and let's pack it together. So us as a Christian, how and what exactly is our calling in this culture? You go to the next slide. So that's the section 3. What's our role? And 2 questions that I want us to ask. Does our mode of engagement change depends on where we work? Second, do we have fundamentally different calling, especially between if you're called to be a minister or missionary or clergy or layman? Layman meaning just like myself, someone like your mom and dad, someone who's not serving so-called like church or Christian institution full-time, but they're in the marketplace, they're doing something else. Next slide. So this was a traditional view that there are different layers of redemptiveness. Remember, the lens from there's exploitative to redemptive, and oftentimes we're thinking, oh, the work in the marketplace, for-profit business, or social sector, or government, or politics, or the hospital, there might be a lot more exploitative. And God's work and degree of holiness goes to the mission and church. So as a Christian, we need to take the resource from this exploitative world and feed into the God's work, where is the church and mission. This was some of the traditional view. But is it right? You go to the next slide. I would argue that culture of exploitativeness and redemptiveness exists in everywhere we go. So there are social sector, there are for-profit, there are mission church, there are Christian nonprofit. Nowhere is perfect and safe from exploitative mode of engagement. And even if we're working for a company, let's say, makes money in the marketplace, whether it's like Facebook, Google, Instagram, or Apple, or name it, or in other sectors like academia or healthcare or service provider, their part of that is also redemptive. Their part of that is exploitative. It's not the matter of where we work, it's the matter of understanding the culture that we're operating. To go, next slide. So I would say, it started even from your heart, and your family, and your school, and church, NCBC, Bay Area, everywhere you go, you can think of, oh, am I noticing lots of exploitative motive, or why, and how we operate, operating model, or what we do is in my heart, in the culture, with my friends group? Do I see that on Instagram? Do I see that on social media? Do I see that in my family, in my church group? We can really think about the culture that we're living. And our calling there is, go to the next slide. So there are 3 callings. I really like this definition of calling. Calling is a big word. You will hear that more later on in your life. But we as a Christian, we have a sense of calling because God called us. And how did God call us? There are 3 ways, 3 different callings. One is, be fruitful and multiply. That God called us to bear the image of Him. So that's our primary calling and the beginning calling. That God has made human being as an image bearer of Himself. The second calling is distinctive to Christians, which is the restoring the image of God. So God made all the human beings as an image bearer of God, but God selected us as a Christian. God called us to restore and bring His kingdom down to earth. So that's our specific calling as a Christian in church. And number 3, this is oftentimes the most emphasized. Oh, what should I do? What is God calling me? What is the exact thing, exact job, exact major that I need to study? And what do I need to do in my life to figure out the exact thing, the call to participate, specific types of vocation? That's not the entirety. Actually, I would argue if you do number 1 and 2 right, number 3 is almost like the icing on the cake. It's very important that God has made us very unique, and it's important to find and continue to unpack the specific calling, but that's not the entirety. We need to and should be reminded of our primary and secondary calling. So let me read certain verse. Go to the next slide. The first calling, as God made the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve, God has said, the humankind in His image, and created them male and female. And God said, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish and the sea, and over the bird and air, everything that moves upon the earth. That's our primary calling. We are made to bear His image. The secondary calling, as a Christian, is God has gave us the ministry of reconciliation. This is 2 Corinthians 5:17-20. So, if anyone is in Christ, we are the new creation. Guys, we are the new creation. Our old self has died. Now Christ lives in us. And God was reconciling the world to Himself, not counting the trespasses against them. Let me read verse 18. All this is from God, who through Christ reconciled us to Himself. He first reconciled us, our old self, to Christ, to God. Thanks be to Christ. And He gave us the ministry of reconciliation. So we are the followers of Christ. So we are following His footsteps to restore and redeem. God gave us that ministry of reconciliation. Next slide. So let's recap. I know I said a lot today. Maybe it was too much, but why don't we recap what we just heard? So first, we are in the Word and not of the Word. Got it? It's the Word, the culture, it's the water that we're swimming in. We are in there, but we are not of the Word. We're not passively just digesting it. We're not just indifferent about it. We're not just fighting war against it. But we are there. There are 3 different modes of any given culture, whether it's from the exploitative, ethical, to redemptive. We are there to bear the image, but even more, restore and redeem the culture on top of bearing the image of God. That's what we're called to do. So, where do we begin? 3 removes. So our journey is amid the exploitation. Even if your friends might be bullying you, even if your family, there are certain exploitative culture and behavior that amid the exploitative, we want to go through the ethical. We want to make things good and be fair and play by the rule and try to advance. And then we go towards the redemptive. So we go to the next slide. We want to remove the exploitative. We want to reorient things to the ethical. And we want to reimagine the redemptive. So if you notice any exploitative behavior in any culture, whether it's church, your friends group, your school, your heart, your own heart, your family, you want to go after removing the exploitative behavior or culture. And you want to reorient
Let's be good. Let's reorient things to the ethical. And then you want to imagine what it's like to be redemptive, what it's like to restore, create restoration through sacrifice. Next slide. So these are some ways. If you're interested, you can get this slide, and you can actually practice. What are some of the things I can remove? What are some of the things I can reorient? What are some of the things I can reimagine? So you can start right here today and think about what that might be for you. So let me close us in prayer, and I'll get a little bit of Q&A. Father God, thank you. It might be a lot that we've unpacked today, but you are the God who selected these boys and girls for your redemptive, restorative journey, the ministry of reconciliation. Thank you for selecting. Thank you for reconciling us with you through Christ. So bless and anoint these boys and girls as they go out this broken world to remove the exploitative culture and reorient things to the ethical lens and reimagine what it's like to creatively restore and redeem with you. Thank you for blessing these boys and girls, and thank you for inviting us to your journey of restoration. Pray all this thing in your name. Amen. Okay, I know it might have been a lot. I think we have about 5 minutes. Any of you have any questions? Was it hard to understand? Or do you guys kind of get it? Or is there anything you think, oh, I'm not sure I can agree on that, or I've never heard of it? No? Any? Good? Was it helpful in any way? Good? Okay, Olivia? Tech, any question? No? All right, thank you everyone. Hope you have a blessed Sunday.
Yeah, let's all thank Teacher Song one more time for preparing for this.
Thank you.
As you can see, he thanks